Hey guys, welcome on another episode of Appetite for Collectibles. As you guys always know, I do these segments called Hey, I Was in Star Wars. And today we are honored by having James Henri Thomas on. Hi, James. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad that you came. For anybody who doesn't know, James lives in England. So our time difference was pretty hectic, but at least we were able to make it work. But you must be super excited with your new show that's out on Disney Plus, The Acolyte.
Yeah, this one's been particularly exciting. I grew up a Star Wars fan my whole life, so when I got my first job on a Star Wars film, which was I was a background extra in Rogue One, and yeah, that was pretty thrilling. And then since then, I've kind of worked my way up a little bit to creature performing, but this was the first Star Wars gig where I played a cast character. So, in other words, a creature who is a named character with dialogue, and so that was a new experience for me on the Acolyte, and yeah, it was pretty intoxicating. I just if I could do it every single day for the rest of my life, I totally would.
I feel like every actor that I have had the chance to talk to has always said that if they could do this for the rest of their lives, that they could, that it's just an amazing opportunity to have. I did see like the extensive background that you have, and I thought it was great that this wasn't just your only first Star Wars film or show that you've ever worked on.
Mm.
Like I saw your list that you were in Rogue One, which for me, I classify that as one of my top three favorite Star Wars films. It was one of those films that you literally felt like you were watching the original trilogy and how well it just meshed together.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun working on it, and I remember the first day that I showed up at Pinewood Studios to get my costume, and they were kind of sizing me up, and they were like, "Oh, what costume should we have him in?" And I could see all of the orange like X-wing pilot jumpsuits just sort of hanging up, and I was just desperate to be an X-wing pilot. I think in the end they put me in a sort of rebel officer costume, which was still pretty cool, but yeah, I mean, from the moment that I discovered that they were making the sequel trilogy in the UK, I was just doing everything that I could to get involved in the Force Awakens. And I remember getting the email address or the phone number of one of the assistant directors or something like that, and just pestering them every single week. And because I'm such a Star Wars fan, and I would call them at 9 a.m. every Monday and say like, look, I'll sweep the floors. I'll do it for free. I just want to be there. So it's been an enjoyable ride so far, and yeah, hopefully they keep calling me back to do more.
Now, since you said that you've been a Star Wars fan like your whole entire life, I always like to ask people, what was your first memory of like the reason as to why you fell in love with Star Wars?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my first experience of Star Wars was a video game. It was called Rebel Assault 2, I think. And that was my first experience of Star Wars. I didn't know what it was. I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I got this video game, and I saw Darth Vader for the first time, and I had to run out the room because I was terrified of him. Um, and yeah, and then it just kind of grew from there. And I don't, I don't know if there was like a specific thing that made me obsessed with it. Um, but yeah, I remember being sort of 6 years old, playing in the playground, pretending that I was Luke Skywalker and things like that, and trying to get my friends to play Star Wars with me. And yeah, I've just sort of been a nerd ever since.
Now, I did see that there was like a trivia question about you, and I wanted to like personally ask you about this.
Yeah, sure.
So, I had seen that back in 2018 for Han Solo,
Mm.
you were I guess, testing out some costumes, and they had given you two different sizes of shoes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you just like went ahead and was like, oh, yeah, these fit. These are great.
Oh
But then
man,
you ended up like actually hurting your feet.
it was so bad, but so great. But yeah, that was my first creature. As you know, they had to do a lot of reshoots on the Han Solo film, and the guy um, Rob Nairn. He's an amazing creature performer, and he was playing the character that they were reshooting scenes with, and he couldn't make the reshoot dates because he said yes to another job. So I got a call from Pinewood Studios, sort of slightly panicked, saying, we're reshooting and the guy can't do the reshoot dates, and you might be the same size as him, so you might fit into the outfit. Do you want to come in and try it on? And yeah, I obviously cleared my diary and I just drove as fast as I could to the studios, and I tried it on, and the shoes were so small. I mean, Rob he's like a foot taller than me. I'm 6'1", 6'2", and he's tall, but he has the tiniest feet. It's the craziest thing. And it was like that scene in Cinderella, where the ugly stepsister is trying to get the slipper on, and she's like, there, it fits. And it was like that because I was just so desperate to get the job. And, I thought if I told them, no, I can't get my feet into these boots, then they would get somebody else to do it, and that would be it. So I just crammed my feet in and told them that it fit beautifully, and then I lost a bunch of toenails, over the course of the next 3 weeks. But I don't care, I'd do it all over again. I mean, it was Star Wars, so yeah.
I'm willing to lose like a small little piece of limb if possible.
Yeah.
If I got the opportunity to be on set on any Star Wars film.
Yeah.
So I definitely know what you feel like. I would have like jammed my feet in there as best as possible.
Yeah. I mean, I think if they had needed somebody with no legs to fit into the outfit, I might have considered chopping my legs off at that point. I mean, yeah, to be in Star Wars, nothing was going to stop me. It was a dream come true.
Now, did you ever get the opportunity to like ever meet George Lucas or work with Dave Filoni? Or even like
sadly, neither of those two. But when we were shooting Star Wars Episode 9, we flew out to Jordan and we shot in the desert for 3 weeks. And I did get a chance to meet J.J. Abrams, and I worked with him a little bit. It's the scene where all of the Aki tribe, they've got their big festival, and there's a dance routine, and we'd worked on this dance routine that these hundreds of creatures were going to be doing. And Paul Casey, another great creature performer, he I don't know what I'd done right that day, but he singled me out just randomly and said, James, JJ wants to see how the dance routine goes. So I got to meet JJ, and I ran that dance routine sort of over and over and over again for about, it was probably only about 3 minutes, but it felt like 15, when you've got the head on and you're in the desert and you're sweating and they're making you dance non-stop.
Was the music at least good?
It was just like sort of standard kind of percussion music. I think somebody had found some stock music on YouTube that, that they got me to dance to. And but yeah, I was super nervous. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna pass out in front of J.J. Abrams and all these people watching. But I made it through, and eventually, he was like, yeah, great. And I managed to get some air and some water. But I'd love to meet George Lucas and Dave Filoni. I mean, yeah, legends, right?
Those are like the godfathers of Star Wars.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe one day. Who knows?
I know. Now, I did see that you worked on the season 1 of Andor. How was that?
It was great. It was a strange time because it was right in the middle of COVID. So, everything was still, you got to wear masks, you got to be socially distanced, you got to be tested as soon as you arrive on set. And so everyone was still like a little bit edgy at that time. And it was kind of one of the rare occasions where you were allowed your phone on set, because if they ran your COVID test that you'd had done in the morning and they'd find out, that you tested positive, then you would get a text message on set, basically saying, get off the set now. And so it was like a little bit edgy. But the set, I'd never seen anything like it. it was like being in a theme park. They had just built this city in the middle of this field, and yeah, it was just, like the practical effects. You weren't in a studio with green screen. You were walking around this town with all of these characters. Yeah, just the incredible amount of work that went into it, and that was just a few scenes. I mean, it was just a huge production. So impressive for a TV show. You wouldn't have got that probably even 10, 15 years ago. You wouldn't have seen budgets like that just for, another TV show. But I guess that's the way things are going now. Everything's streaming, and that's where all of the budgets are being poured into, and it was incredible.
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't watch Andor when it first came out. I wanted like the momentum to build up. And I was hearing online constantly like people saying like this is boring or this, and I wanted to go in there with my own opinion, but I didn't want to watch it while it was still on. So once it finished, I gave it a couple, I gave it time for like the heat to die down. And I ended up watching it, and I was so mad at myself that I didn't watch it when it premiered,
Yeah,
because it was something that I have never seen before in a TV show for something that was Star Wars. It
yeah,
was, yeah, it was just, between the speeches, the dialogues, the incredible acting. There was not one actor that was on that, on that show that I could say was a terrible actor. They all had great, they possessed the character that they played very well.
yeah. I mean, I had to rewind a few scenes and watch them several times just to watch the acting over and over again. And the writing is brilliant. Yeah, it's a great show. Yeah, it's like quite an amusing thing sometimes with some Star Wars fans. They can be quite fickle, can't they? And when a new show's announced, you get a lot of people in the comment sections like, "Oh, this is going to suck," and then the show comes out, and then like in the case of Andor, now people are saying, um, that's they rank that as the sort of top thing in the Star Wars canon for them. Like
Hmm.
that's just like a great show with great writing, um and so yeah, I mean, I remember when I was sort of a kid and the prequel trilogy came out, and there were like a whole bunch of people hating on that, and now everyone looks back on the prequel trilogy with such fondness, and everyone loves
Hmm.
it, and it's like a gold mine of memes and gifs, um and so these things do go full circle in the end. That people are so skeptical in the beginning, and then they reluctantly watch it, and then they actually start to get into it, and then they're like, oh, it's actually not that bad, and
Yeah.
then years down the line they're like, oh yeah, great show, I love that show.
Yeah, see, I've always gone with the mentality that like I will listen to other people's opinions. Sometimes I will go on Rotten Tomatoes and
Yeah.
see how they critique it, but at the end of the day, like I want to watch it to have my own judgment.
Mm,
I'm going to be 37 years old, and I remember seeing the prequels in theaters. Like that was my Star Wars.
mm.
And never once did I dislike any of them, and still to this day is still my favorite of all the groups.
Yeah,
I
I'm
even went to
I'm
the
I'm
theater.
35. Yeah, I
Yeah,
I wanted to go to the theater a couple of months ago when they re-released Phantom Menace,
yeah.
and I booked like 4 tickets to go and see it on the big screen, and no one would come with me, so I didn't go in the end. I was like, "Guys, Star Wars, anyone?" Um,
Yeah,
but
I went
yeah,
with a
yeah,
group of my friends, and like we took our lightsabers, and I have like the Darth Maul saber. So as soon as like the fight scene went on, like I
yeah,
lit up the saber, and like thank God we had people in the back behind us who actually were like clapping and laughing, and a whole bunch of us like went dressed up.
yeah.
But like I told people, doing that after it's been 25 years that it's been in theaters, it brought me back to being a child. So
Mm.
it's like I felt like, when people go and see it now, I feel like they have that same experience that, they feel like that childlike in them kicking in again. And I'm hoping, like with any of the shows that we see now, later on when kids of that generation get older and they rewatch it again, they feel that exact way, like as if they're being back to being kids.
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, yeah, when the prequel trilogy came out, there were the Star Wars fans who'd grown up with the original trilogy in the 70s and 80s, and they were coming out of the theaters then going like, "Oh, that was terrible." But
Hmm.
kids like you and me, because I'm 35, so that was my Star Wars too. Going to see Phantom Menace, and I just remember, yeah, being crazy for it. I loved it.
Hmm.
I bought all the toys. My younger brother and I, bought the lightsabers, and we'd rehearse our own lightsaber battle routines and like jumping around the house. And yeah, yeah, it is going to be one of these things now where people are saying negative things about this, that, and the other, but there'll be another generation who are falling in love with it, and
And
yeah,
appreciate it like we
and
do.
appreciating it, exactly.
Now, with talking about like with Andor, are you going to be part of season 2?
We have shot some season 2 Andor, yes. I gotta be
Okay.
careful about what I say.
Yeah, that's all
Um
I wanted to know. I wasn't gonna ask you anything else because I knew you guys were still in like production and stuff. So I just wanted to know we were gonna have the luxury of possibly seeing you in Andor too.
I mean, you will and you won't, because I'll
Okay.
be I'll be, playing more creatures.
Yeah.
So yes, you'll see my creatures. You won't see my real face.
Yeah. But
Um,
we'll see your name on the credits and know that it's you.
yes, you will.
That's cool.
And yeah, there's an exciting um character that I got to play, and I just can't talk about it.
No, that's good. I understand.
But I can't wait to see it. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I heard. And the fact that this is around the time now that it's gonna be leading up to Rogue One, I
Mm.
believe. So we'll be able to see how all that, how those characters got together and everything. So I'm pretty excited about that. But speaking of characters, since we did talk about it, and you said earlier that, when you first saw Darth Vader, was Darth Vader your original favorite character of all time?
Oh, wow. Um, that's a great question. Uh, I mean, it would have been Luke Skywalker. He would have been my all-time favorite, and then it sort of evolved over the years. I mean, uh, now I'd probably settle on, yeah, maybe either Han Solo or Princess Leia. Just their chemistry is. I mean, it's the other thing about growing up. I mean, so many of the kind of jokes I saw in Star Wars when I was a kid went over my head, and
Mm-hmm.
then you watch Star Wars as an adult, and you're like, oh, that's really
That's what,
funny.
yeah, or that's what they
Um,
really meant.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so my taste for the characters has evolved for sure as I've gotten older. And yeah, and then just yeah, like Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's another thing. As you grow older and you learn about these actors and you research them, and you suddenly start to appreciate just how good they were at acting, and so the characters that they play then take on a whole other meaning for you. Um, yeah, Lando Calrissian. Yeah, I could name a whole bunch of them. I don't know. I'm not sure I could pick a favorite.
Yeah, I know. I always say that Darth Vader and Ahsoka Tano are my favorite, but
Mm,
then, I think of all the different characteristics of other people. Like, I'm a sucker for Lando Calrissian. Um, but yeah, like I'm the same as you. Like I do have my favorites, but then when I start thinking about the other characters, I was like, wait, I like this one too, and this one.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I
you
was
never
gonna.
are satisfied.
I was gonna say Ahsoka actually. I loved watching the Clone Wars, the animated series. It just that was like a whole lockdown thing for me.
Hmm.
Stuck in your apartment. It's like, what am I going to do? I can finally get round to watching those 400 episodes of yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, she's a great character.
Yeah, it's by far one of my favorite characters.
Mm, yeah.
But now speaking about the acolyte, um, what were you doing when you got the phone call to, to audition, or they were informing you that, hey, we're going to be making a new Disney show and, we want you to come in?
Yeah, another good question. I mean, by that time, I'd actually, I'd accepted a full-time job here in London, and I'd kind of thought, that's that's probably it for my acting and creature performing days. Because now that I work full time, they're not going to offer me the work. And I got a call from Derek Arnold, who works in the creature effects department, and I saw his name come up on my phone, and my heart sank because I was like, "Oh, I know this is Derek asking me if I can do more Star Wars, and I'm going to have to say no to him." And yeah, that's what he did. He offered me a job. He didn't tell me what it was, and I just said, like, "Look, I got a full-time job now, so this really sucks to have to say this, but I can't do it."
Ooh.
And he was like, "Well, it's only like 2 or 3 days shooting, and he's a named character, so he's got dialogue, and it's actually quite a cool scene." And so suddenly I was like, "Oh God." um, yeah. So I was like, "Okay, I'll do it. I'll find a way to do it. I'll take holiday from my job. Like, just let me talk to my boss." So yeah, I spoke to my boss, and
How
yeah,
did
she
that
was.
conversation go with your boss?
It was okay. I was a little bit nervous, but she knew. I think she knew that I had come from that world before I'd got the job with her. So she knew that this is kind of what I did on the side. And I was like, "I just got this phone call, and yeah, it's Star Wars, and I'd really like to do it. Is that okay?" And yeah, she was just like, "Fine, fine, but as long as you keep on top of your work." And I was like, "I will." Um, so yeah, so I said yes, and then yeah, and then I discovered that he's a Neomoidian, and
The
yeah,
amount the amount of people who freaked out online when his character popped up was hilarious, because we hadn't seen them in years. Since I
yeah,
think the last time they were seen, their first appearance was on The Phantom Menace.
yeah,
And then, the last take we saw of them was on Revenge of the Sith. So there was never, any
yeah,
more stories of that species. And then, to see them again, it was just like, oh my gosh, like that. What was it, that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like
yeah, yeah,
whistling? Yeah.
yeah, that, yeah,
That's what it looked like. And I was on like when I saw it on my screen, I was like, oh my gosh. And I pressed pause and I was like, they're back. Or I was like, no, wait a
yeah,
second, they
yeah,
can't be back. These are the original ones. I was like, oh, I
yeah,
want to, are they gonna be more on the show? And I
yeah,
love the fact that, the accents were different with these
yes,
characters.
yeah, yeah. I know that yeah, there's some. I don't know how to say it really. Just yeah, the accents in the prequel trilogy, you wouldn't get away with it nowadays. Let's just put it
Yes.
that way. You wouldn't do that. So yes, the accents are different. Um, and I don't even know who voiced Captain Blex. I don't know who it was. Because it's not our voices. I'm in the
No.
suit doing the
Yeah.
movements, and then I had Mike Quinn, another legend.
Great.
He was controlling the mouth, and then Colin Purves was doing the eyes. So it's like it's a whole collaboration to bring the character to life, but the voice acting is not actually done on set while you're shooting the scene. It's all kind of dubbed over later. So
Yeah. So
whoever
you're just
whoever he
basically
is, yeah,
moving.
he did a great job. Yeah, I wish I could credit him, but I don't know who did the voice. But
Yeah.
but
But
yeah, I
that's
liked it.
awesome that you got to work with Mike Quinn, because he's a
Yeah.
legend in Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I hang out with him, I learn something new about him that blows my mind even more. Like, oh yeah, I did Kermit the Frog in Muppet Christmas Carol, and he'll just say it so casually, and I'm like, wait, what you did that? And yeah, so he's got all these amazing stories and really cool projects that he's worked on over the years. Yeah, he's a legend. So yeah, and that was my first time sort of properly collaborating with him and working together. So it was a real pleasure and an honor for me to do that.
Now, your character Blex on the show, so he's a captain in the Trade Federation Republic. Is are weird. Well, I know you probably cannot answer this, but is his I'm trying to figure out
Does
is
his
he
storyline continue?
does his storyline continue?
Who knows? Who
Who knows?
knows?
Okay. Well, I'll make sure to be on the lookout. I'll keep looking for his character.
It would be nice.
Yeah, it would be nice. Um, but yeah, I see that, like a couple of buddies of mine have had the opportunities of going to, the sets, and, they went to the premiere that was in California. And they were able to sit down and talk with like some of your fellow coworkers as well. Um, how were you guys possibly aware about like how the the crowd, the fans were going to be receptive to the Acolyte? Did you think maybe it was going to be something negative or positive? Because I know we talked about recently that before the show even came out, in the news, it was already, people were saying bad stuff, even though it was a 9-second trailer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. You hope that people will respond positively, but just the more Star Wars is made these days, the more cynical I've become of what the reaction's going to be. I mean, it's like every time without fail, a new trailer drops, people are like, "Ugh, no, I'll pass, thanks." They just it's like they don't want to really give it a chance. But it's great to see that people, still show up and there are crowds at the premieres and things like that. It shows that actually those negative people probably are just a very vocal minority.
Hmm.
People who are just, like me, chilled out about it and just looking forward to it coming out, and they want to watch it. They're probably not the kind of people who are going to bother to leave a comment under a video, saying like this looks whatever it is that they want to say. So yeah, I imagine that the vast majority of Star Wars fans will have been looking forward to it and excited about it, and then you just have to kind of block out that noise from those few people. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it was quite interesting to see that it had gotten, what was it? It was 11.4 million views on the first day. It
Wow.
was the second highest rating show. I know Ahsoka was 14 million. Um, and it got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So that, and for anybody to get anything above
Yeah.
90% on Rotten Tomatoes, you're doing a good job, because they are the strongest critics out there. They
Hmm.
will, they make fun of movies that have had like 1% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So, the fact that this was a first time show of something that didn't have to do anything with the Skywalker era, for it to get 93%, it's an accomplishment to all of you guys who are a part of this, including yourself. So, I just think that, and like I said this before, even when the trailer dropped, like I'm going into this as a Star Wars fan where I want to watch the whole entire show, and then I will give my personal feelings about it. I can't just go based off of it 2 episodes.
Yeah. That's a really nice thing for you to say. I mean, I can't speak for everybody who works on it, but the vibe that I got from being on set is that every single person who was there working was doing it because they love Star Wars, and they wanted to create something that not just Star Wars fans would like, but that everyone would like. The people get out of bed at 4:30 in the morning and go to set and have a coffee and crack on because they love it, and they just want to, you know, they want to create something great. And And yeah, I think that definitely comes across in the show. Like it sounds real cliche, but a lot of love from a lot of people was poured into it, as has been the case with every Star Wars production that I've worked on. Everyone is buzzing to be working on it, and they want it to be good.
That's good. I like hearing that. I like that everybody that's on that set is like excited to be part of something because in the end it gets written in the Star Wars history books. And
Yeah.
there will be that one little kid one day that will see it and fall in love with it and become like me or you or other fans out there that will continue the legacy. Star Wars is going to be hitting almost 50 years within the next couple
Wow.
of years. And to hear that is just like insane because it is one of the oldest fandoms out there that I feel. And I got to speak to Roger Christensen, and he said the same thing. He thinks that Star Wars is going to be one of those fandoms it's going to live on forever. It's going to pass our generation and other generations out there, kind of like how they quote that in Star Wars. It's going to be living on past the generations. So I like hearing that you say that the people who are on set seem like they're very happy to be there. So
Yeah,
thank you
yeah.
for that.
No, for sure. I mean, I've worked on quite a lot of films over the years, and I've been on sets where people are just sort of going through the motions, and with Star Wars, it's never been the case. It's a different vibe when you're on a Star Wars set, for sure.
That's awesome. Now, if you had any advice for anybody that's just getting into acting or, into creatures or wanting to do anything, into film, what advice would you give to anybody who's inspiring to just try to get, into the acting world?
Man, well, I mean, if you want to get into creatures, then you need an unusual body. So, I mean, like I'm sort of tall and skinny and lanky, and that works in my favor. And then obviously there are creature performers, who are, 3 feet tall, and there are others who are, yeah, 8 feet tall. So if you have an unusual look, then that's a good start. Um, and then, to have some kind of performance training or performance background is definitely a bonus. I mean, there are creature performers who, are models or dancers or circus performers or stunt artists. So yeah, you need to know how to take direction and how to move in a certain way, and also to not be claustrophobic because when they put the heads on, you can be stuck inside them for hours, while they're shooting.
I do have to ask, how heavy was that suit? What was that whole costume for Blex?
That was actually one of the better ones. The costume was pretty heavy, if I remember, but yeah, I've had like heavy animatronic heads on, like in Solo. That was, oh my god,
Hmm.
like that killed me because that was my first experience of creature performing. I was like, oh my god, is this what it is?
You must have been
Um,
like, oh, this is so
Yeah, but actually some of them, like, they're not too bad as long as you're not claustrophobic.
yeah.
I've seen people freak out and, had to, have to wave their hands and ask to be taken out of them, it
Yes, I
happens. And
definitely I definitely would fail.
yeah. But I mean, if you wanna be an actor, that's a big question. Uh, Training doesn't always help. Recently I saw an interview with Russell Crowe, and somebody asked him, about what method he uses as an actor, and he's just like, well, I just use the Russell Crowe method. I just learn the lines and I show up on set and I do it. It's really not that hard. And he's an incredible actor, and so. Um, yeah, acting doesn't really have a set path. It's not like if you want to be an accountant, you need to take these exams and then you need to get a job and then you need to like it. You just never know how
Yeah.
how acting is going to find you, really. Um, yeah, I, if I knew the answer, then I would have been a much more successful actor.
Now, are you gonna be doing like any conventions anytime soon? Can we catch you in the USA doing like any cons?
I would love to come back to the USA and do more of that. Yeah, I mean, I'm up for it. So, uh,
Okay.
yeah, if I get the invitations, then I'll be there.
I know a couple people who run some conventions, so I will definitely send your info
Yes,
to
hit me
them
up.
and see. Yeah, try to bring you to the USA so we can meet you.
You can put me in economy. I don't need business class. Don't worry about that. I'm not precious.
I'll make
I,
sure to
I
let them
I
know
won't
that.
have an extensive, what do they call it? A rider, like everything that I want in my dressing room, the temperature has to be, 16 degrees, and I need 3 bottles of water with the
And you need
label
a
facing
what is
outwards.
it, 1200 count pillow sheet?
Yeah, yeah. And I want M&Ms, but only the blue ones.
Yeah, they gotta be like an odd number on the bowl.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
for anybody who wanted to find you, where can they find you online? Because I know you can be found on Instagram. You can plug away your social medias.
Yes. Well, yeah, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook. Yeah, I don't use Facebook that much anymore. Is Facebook still a thing? I guess it's still a
I
thing.
use it for family members,
Yeah, same. I sort of dip in and out of it every now and then.
or I send like
Um,
memes to my family members, like stuff I probably wouldn't be posting on
yeah,
Instagram.
I think I use Facebook almost exclusively for wishing family members a happy birthday.
Yeah.
And then I go onto their wall and I see that the last time that I spoke to them was exactly a year before saying happy birthday, which is not great. Um, but yeah, you can find me on Instagram. What am I? I'm J Henry T. So Jay underscore, and then Henry with an I, and then another underscore, and then T as in TEE. It's not the catchiest.
No, I'll make sure to put it down here once I do all the editing. But
Nice.
yeah, James, I just want to say thank you so much for hopping in. It was a pleasure. Like I said, I was super honored when you responded back, and I was like, yes, get a person from the Acolyte. I was like, and he's
Nice.
playing one of the greatest creatures in Star Wars because they're great. I love and I always have a hard time pronouncing their characters because English was not my first language,
Yeah.
but their creatures are great. It was pretty funny before we wrap things up. I don't know if you know the company Gentle Giant.
I don't?
They so yeah, they make little miniature busts, and they have this thing called a collector's guild, and it's for premium buyers for their
Okay.
company, and they're actually making that species as one of the characters. So I just thought it was so funny that the character showed up on the Acolyte. I was just, doing the interview with you today, so it was funny that they announced it, and I was like, "Yep, I'm definitely getting one of those."
Oh, man. I mean, yeah, I still haven't reached that level where I've got myself as like a little figurine, like there hasn't been a Hasbro toy of any of my characters yet,
Oh, they'll
but
probably make one.
maybe I hope they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be the first one. I'll be queuing outside the store to buy the
When
first
I
one.
when I edit this and I make reels, we'll make this into a reel and we'll try to get I'll plug away at like Hasbro, you know, all the toy
Please, yes.
companies. Just make one. Even if
Hasbro,
you Yeah, just make
I
a couple.
Hasbro, I beg you, please make a Captain Black's figurine. That would be insane.
Well, again, James, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you
And
so much for having me. It has
guys,
been
follow
really nice.
him. I'm going to plug away all his outlets and be on the lookout. We're going to see his new character that he's going to be playing in Andor season 2. And hopefully, let's cross our fingers that we'll see more of his character in the Acolyte. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and may the force be with you.